From Shine Cancer Support, this is
Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show.
This is not your grandma's cancer show.
Hi, I'm Tatum, and one of the things that we know here at Shine is getting a cancer diagnosis can mean a financial hit. And it's not just what we're earning goes down, but also our costs can go up. But for many of us, between 20 and 49, we've never actually thought about benefits before. And so the idea of where to begin or what to do can feel quite overwhelming. And that's why we have Matthew Bourne with us today. He's a chartered accountant, and he's going to tell us a little bit about where to begin with benefits.
This is not your grandma's cancer show.
Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show.
Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really glad that you're here. So can you tell me a little bit about what it is that you do for work and how you got into this?
I started my career many, many years ago. I was working for HSBC Bank, and then I was working for Barclays, and I started to really enjoy working with people, working with numbers. And so I did some exams, qualified as a mortgage advisor, and then done more exams and qualified as a chartered financial planner. Basically, my job now is to help support people, help to plan their future. So we look at giving them investment, tax, retirement planning advice, protection advice, all these sorts of things. And one of the things that I specialize in now is medical negligence and personal injury claims. So if a client were to receive a settlement for an injury that happened to them, it's about that long-term planning and about looking to the future to see how long that money can help last and what we can do to make it last even longer.
Yeah, you mentioned mortgages, and that is one of the things. This is so foundational. What happens to people financially, it's wrapped in with security. It's really overwhelming when, you look and you think, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the mortgage? Do you have a bit of advice for someone who is I don't know where to look, or even am I entitled to anything?
One of the first things I would always suggest anybody to do is if you have got a mortgage or you've got a landlord and you've got to pay them some money, the first thing I would be saying is contact them, let them know what's happening. Mortgage providers can be very understanding. You can get what we call payment holidays, where you may get some time off to be able to save some money. They may be able to change the term to bring the mortgage payment down. They may even be able to pause it and make it an interest-only mortgage. So really, really important to make that conversation happen as soon as you can. Let them know what's happening. They can be really, really helpful in that situation.
And I can see how that would work in kind of that acute setting of, okay, I'm going to be off work for a little while, but then I'm going to get back to it. But one of the other things that you mentioned, the clients that you work with now, is looking at that longer term as well. What if actually you can't work in quite the same way as you used to, or can't work going forward? So I imagine that looking into benefits and what's available is also not just in the short term, but kind of looking to plan potentially for years going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Really important in that you get that initial situation with the telephone meeting with the bank. You let them know what's happened, but then it's about looking further forward and thinking, okay, well, where's my income going to come from? And the benefit world is very confusing. You have benefits that have changed names in the past few years, which means when you're Googling and you're looking at what benefits may I be entitled to, you will see a name, and that name actually doesn't exist anymore. The best place to be going, first of all, I would always suggest is a charity base called Turn to Us. Turn to Us have an online platform, and you can fill in a short questionnaire. It takes about 10 minutes or so. And that questionnaire will then tell you what benefits they believe you're entitled to. And that can be a really useful step, because then the next part is, I need to call DWP, I need to call Citizens Advice, I need to have a conversation with them to see how I can apply, where I can apply, and they can do that for you. So really important to, like I say, turn to us, find out what benefits you're entitled to, and then straight on the phone to DWP and Citizens Advice.
Yeah, I've also heard that Maggie's also has a financial advisor, and I looked up what they do and it sounded so nice. Like even just reading the description was quite reassuring. So they will like kind of listen and then figure out what to go for, what to ask for, but also will help you with the paperwork, because I think that's also
fantastic.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. I have something I've always called formophobia. If there's a form involved, I run screaming the other direction. Having someone to check a form, to look at a form with, to ask those questions was just so nice. Like you said, these things change. I don't know if you've heard of the changes with Macmillan recently.
No, I haven't actually. What's happened?
So Macmillan always used to have a financial advisory people that helped along those lines. And just in the last week, they've cut that program. It will be cut by May 2026. So for years and years and years, they've been offering this as a service, and that's coming to an end. So right at a time that, like you were saying, the benefits themselves are changing, so is sort of the landscape. So having something like Turn to Us that's online that you can access from anywhere, but then also potentially Citizens Advice and Maggie's, like having a couple of options, it seems like a good plan to have.
Definitely, really important, and it's a real shame that that's happened with Macmillans, because I know that's been a real use for a lot of people. So, it's fantastic that Maggie's are available to offer the actual support with filling in the forms as well. If you do have formophobia, which I think a lot of us do, especially the number we have to fill in now.
I can't imagine in the work that you do that you might have formophobia again as well.
No, I'm quite lucky. I don't have it because I do it all the time. But a lot of my clients are in the same position for sure.
Well, that's good to know. It's not just me. I remember during treatment, I had to do some admin and I was just bald, I had no eyebrows, and I was just sobbing as if someone was torturing me. I was like, really? I can't get out of doing paperwork now? And I think that's the thing, is even with thinking about where to go, having a backup option, there is something just acknowledging it is tough and it is unfair to have that extra bureaucracy at a time that you're maybe feeling sicker than you've ever felt in your life, feeling weaker, or have a foggier brain, and it can be hard to remember things. I wanted to ask a bit about what kinds of benefits are out there. So we talked about potentially talking to your bank, mortgage, government. Are there any other places or any things that, people might not think about?
Yeah, so I think, there are various sort of benefits that are available depending on your current health positioning, depending on how mobile you may be, your mental health condition, those sorts of things. And, you can get things like what we call personal independent payment, also known as PIP. That's one that's, not means tested. So that means that no matter how much money you have, how much you're earning, you can still claim personal independence payment. Depending on your age, potentially disability living allowance, although again, that's recently changed. And also you've got something called employment and support allowance that is normally available as well. On top of that, there are other benefits that can be applied for if they were to be, if you were to meet those strict criteria. Some of them are means tested, which means that you would have to have sort of a position where you haven't got any savings or any real assets. But the ones I just mentioned beforehand, those ones are free from means tested, and means you'll be able to try and claim for those as long as you're meeting the criteria.
Yeah, because a lot of people fall into, I have something in the bank, but I'm still struggling to pay my bills. So things like PIP and ESA, so employment support allowance, they are more to do with your level of need, so how much your treatment, how much your cancer has impacted you, rather than what you have in the bank or, like you said, any assets. So are they looking at, like, if you own your own home and things like that?
They do normally ask that question, but it typically doesn't matter.
Okay.
They will ask those questions, but because they're non-means tested, it won't make any difference.
Okay.
But if you are going through an application and you're trying for more than just the non-means tested benefits, then of course they will ask you about your assets. But when they are non-means tested, such as PIP, then there will be no questions on that. No.
Okay. This is really good to know, because we did a survey of 600 people within Shine, and what we found when it came to benefits was 55% did not know that there was a discretionary housing support, and did not know that council tax can also give you a break as well. Do you know anything about, in terms of, what happens with council tax?
Yeah, so there are various things that they can do. They can reduce it. They can give you a 100% discount, depending on your condition, depending on what other benefits you may qualify for. There can certainly be some support there. And, again, it's about making sure you're speaking with the local authority, letting them know your condition and letting them know that you're on certain benefits, and, making sure that they give you the discounts that are so rightly needed.
Yeah. You mentioned lump sums, that you often work with people that have a lump sum. So if someone is thinking they don't know how much time they have, they know that they have a pension, is there a way to get into a pension, and what generally happens in that kind of situation?
Yeah, so pensions tend to be restricted to accessing them before age 55. However, there are exceptions, and those exceptions tend to be depending on health, terminal illnesses, real chronic conditions. There is a way that you can access those pensions earlier. So once that's been done, you will then be able to access those pensions. You'll be able to use them to support yourself. And one of the key things is then going to be looking at, how can I make this last as long as possible? How long will this last for me? And one of the things that's really important then is to sit down with a financial planner, and they can do what we call cash flow forecasting. So cash flow forecasting looks at, I've got this amount of money, I need to spend X amount per month, per year. How long is that going to last me? And, you can then look at it and sit back and say, okay, well, if the pension is remaining invested and I'm going to earn X percentage from it, it might last me 10, 15, 20 years. If actually it's, all taken out in cash, it might only last me 10, 12 years. So it's about having those conversations and really looking at what your outgoings are, what potential future expenses might be, and managing within those parameters to make it last as long as possible.
Yeah. Again, kind of not figuring out how to do that on your own, like having someone that can look and think about the things that often fall between the cracks, right? When you're, I imagine in the work that you do, forecasting for a lot of different people, that you can anticipate areas that people just imagine or don't think about, right? Because how many of us have really thought, I need to live off this for this amount of time? Are there any of your kind of tips for doing that you could share with us? So if someone is like, oh God, I need to kind of figure out over the next year what I need to live on, how would you suggest sort of setting that up, or are there any templates for that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd be doing is looking through my last 3 months bank statements, and I'll be jotting down, perhaps on an Excel spreadsheet, for those that are more technically savvy, if not pen and paper. And, you can look in there and say, these are my direct debits that I have to pay every single month. These are my sort of luxuries, whether that's the coffee, whether that's the Nando's takeaway, whatever it might be. And it's about then looking at it and saying, right, so if my absolute bills that I have to pay are £1,000 a month, my luxuries, if you like, are £200-300 a month, that means I need about £1,300 a month to be able to live on. And if you've got that lump sum from wherever it is, whether or not that is from a pension, whether that's from a back payment for benefits, whether that is from a critical illness policy, you will be able to then figure out how long you can continue on that for. And, once benefits start getting paid, then, you can think, okay, well, my outgoings are 1,300. I've said that, but actually I'm getting £1,000 from benefits per month now. That means, it's £300 cost to me each month.
So you suggest kind of getting it all down, sort of getting eyes on it, and really spending a little bit of time really looking at it so that then you can kind of put it to the side, knowing that there is potentially enough. And you said, benefits, you might have to wait a while until it might be a back payment of benefits, which makes me think the process can be long with benefits, and sometimes you can get rejected. Is it worth, if you do get rejected, to try again? Like, is there an avenue for that?
100%. If you think that you are entitled to do that, then you can almost reject their rejection. So you can say, actually, no, I genuinely believe I still am. I would like you to reassess it. But they will then reassess that for you. And if they then say, again, you've been rejected, then the best thing to do is to go to a tribunal. And you can actually appeal all the way to the tribunal. And if you fundamentally believe you're entitled to benefits, then you absolutely should get benefits. And, the way to do that is to keep fighting. And I know that's going to be tiring and difficult, because you're likely going to be tired. You're likely going to be exhausted and feel some of the worst you've ever felt. That's where companies like Maggie's may be able to help. That's where, again, Citizens Advice can offer some support. Fighting for what you deserve and what you need is important. But yes, you can absolutely reject their rejections and carry on trying to claim it.
What documents, when they come in through the post, should go into like a box that's like benefit information that I need to hold on to and not lose in a pile of unopened mail? What are the really important things to hold on to? Yeah.
National insurance number, you're going to need a lot, because every time you speak to a government department, you're going to need to provide your national insurance number. So unless you're lucky enough to remember that off by heart, you need to have that jotted down. You can find that on a payslip, an existing benefit letter, or one of those old cards that they used to give us back in the day. Also, I would have to slide a payslip, the most recent payslip that you have, just because there will be figures and numbers on there that the people at DWP may ask for information from. You would want medical records, anything to do with a diagnosis, dates and severities, and have photos of them or photo scans on your phone, so you can email them to any department that needs them. And then I would be having as well written down the income and the expenditure we spoke about before, because when you are claiming benefits, if we look at means tested benefits, then they will be looking at doing an income versus expenditure assessment. So it's really handy to be able to say on there, actually, yes, this is my income at the moment because I'm getting some sort of sick pay, or I am still able to work a few days a week, or I am still working, but this is my current position. This is my expenditure, and that will be really useful in those conversations. And then any letters that you get from the Department of Work and Pensions, or any letters you get from Citizens Advice, anything you get from Maggie's, just keep it all safe in one place so you can easily access it and be able to refer to it if you need to.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got Turn to Us, look for who's giving out some help, so for 1 year only. We've got Macmillan, we've got Maggie's, Citizens Advice, hang on to documents, maybe even have a place to put things, like one basket, and maybe kind of like all those numbers that you were saying, kind of like as a cheat sheet on the top. And then potentially looking into what's means tested, what isn't. So if it isn't means tested, it doesn't matter what assets you have, it's more about your need. And if your need is great, then go for everything that's available. But also think about looking outside of that in terms of contacting your bank, contacting mortgage, council tax. And if someone is looking at a pension, a lump sum, and they want to do forecasting, how do they find someone who they can trust to like really give them good advice about how to do that?
The key thing is to look for financial advisors, and those financial advisors need to be registered with the FCA. So you'll be able to look on an FCA register and make sure that those financial advisors are registered with them. And, look at reviews, make sure that people have put good positive reviews about those financial advisors. A lot of the time, a family or friend will know someone who is a financial advisor or have used one in the past. If you've got, the best type of referral is somebody that you know, because you can add that layer of trust there as well. But most importantly, making sure they're registered with the FCA.
That is really good to know. I think you've given us a brilliant lowdown on where to begin with benefits. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I want to say thank you as well to Erwin Mitchell for supporting Shine, for Radio Facilities for sponsoring our podcast, and to all of you listening. Send us your questions. We're going to be doing more about benefits going forward, experiences of benefits. Send us your questions. And if it's something that you're navigating, you're in the weeds at the moment, come along to a Shine event, check out our website, shinecancersupport.org, and meet up with others that are also going through that. Have a glass of wine, have a chat about this. Know that you're not on your own with navigating this. So till next time, thank you so much. Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate your expertise. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
This is not your grandma's cancer show.
Not your grandma's cancer show.